Hello, beautiful wild woman. Welcome back to the Wild Woman podcast. I am your host, Henna Furore, and so happy that you have tuned into this audio space yet again. And if you're completely new to it, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Wild Woman podcast has definitely established itself now. Thank you, everyone who sent me beautiful messages, left the 5-star rating. This is so amazing and helps me definitely to keep creating this with the nice bounce in my step. So let's dig in with this beautiful gratitude energy into today's episode. And that gratitude energy is actually very welcomed at the moment because in a way it's a bit of an historic day today because if you know where I'm talking to you from, I live on Sunshine Coast, Queensland, in Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia, and we are at the moment one day from facing a tropical cyclone. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. I have never experienced a tropical cyclone before. If you don't know what a cyclone is, apparently it's the same thing as a hurricane or a typhoon, but it's Southern Pacific Ocean. It's called a cyclone. So we'll see how it all unfolds, but this nice, beautiful wild woman, gentle energy and maybe a bit of storytelling is very much welcome at the moment. And my husband was again called to work, although today all the shifts were cancelled, but he was called back to work to help navigate a very frantic traffic apparently, because it is creating a bit of a chaos out there. So I was thinking, well, I'm at home alone at the moment. I still want to record my podcast episode, talk about the things I was planning to talk this week. And hopefully I have managed to block out enough sound. It's the wind is picking up a little bit and, you know, there's stuff happening in the outside world. But I'm really, really happy I get to have this chat here with you. And today's episode is going to be a Q&A, and I actually wrote some questions down, and I've been posting a couple of times on my Instagram stories. What is something that I could be speaking with in the Q&A if anyone has some questions? And there hasn't been like a whole lot of questions, but some of them are really, really interesting. And I've also included some of the questions that just very often gets asked to me. So it's not going to be a heap of questions, just a few today. But it's just my style. If you know me at all, it's my style to actually answer the question. So let's dig right into it. And if you if you have any questions in the future, please send them through to me. I love this part. I love answering questions, and I love how I'm getting certain insights from answering other people's questions, and there's a lot of synergy, a lot of energy, a lot of new energy has been created and is created every time people get curious. And curiosity and asking questions and having your curiosity satisfied is actually something that I teach also people who deal with relationship issues, and if communication is a problem, then my first answer to this is always get curious what's going on for the other person, because very often we are getting kind of in this realm of stuck in this state of trying to get our message across. And I know I'm definitely sometimes guilty of that. Instead of listening to the other person and starting to truly understand where they're coming from, we actually get very much sometimes blinded by our own emotions and want to get our point across instead of the curiosity that can be there for both parties. So I think curiosity is an amazing thing and keeps us moving forward, keeps us learning. So yes, satisfy your curiosity, ask all the questions you want to ask. I love that bit. I love answering them. So I'm very happy some people were very curious and asked some very amazing questions. So let's go with the first one. The first question I'm going to answer today is, what is your approach? So this is a question that I get asked very often. If people ask what I do, how do you call yourself? They can see that, I'm doing the women's work, but like, what's the kind of like the title that sums it all up? Yes, I'm a women's coach, mentor, mindset coach, and I work particularly with emotions, energy, and mindset. There's this trifecta of three things that to me makes the world go around. And then people are interested, what's your approach? Because every healer, every coach has their own unique approach. And it's true. And my approach is this. Like I mentioned, mindset, emotions, and energy, they create this very important trifecta that we cannot separate from each other. Even at the moment, for example, in this very uncertain situation that millions of people are facing, a very significant weather event, people are talking about mindset and like, don't be scared, be prepared, all of that. But actually, we need to give our fear a lot of space here so it can kind of be acknowledged and it can also leave. We can't constantly keep suppressing our emotions and then expect our mental health to be good, because any rejection of any part of ourselves can create and will create sooner or later some issues down the track, right? So to me, the unique approach is that we need to approach healing and personal wellness and health as something we are tackling as many angles as possible, because all parts affect the whole. Let's say, like, if someone is really struggling, if they are too fragile to start working on their emotions, what they can start working on in their environment, start working their time management, start clearing out their space, changing bed sheets, giving themselves a good shower, doing a makeup, having a haircut. Anything like this is amazing and starts to elevate all other parts of ourselves. Obviously, in my work, in my private work, particularly with amazing women mainly, but also men, I always check in with the person and with the person's energy, mindset, and emotions. Is the shift that we're looking for, is the healing that we're after, is the change that we're craving happening in all levels possible. Because if someone is only doing the mindset work and ignoring the emotions, the mindset work most likely eventually will not stick, because the emotions are always stronger. Energy is something that is produced by both their mindset and the emotions, and we need to understand the importance of all of these parts. Let's say if there's old stagnant energy living in the body and commanding its attention, its acknowledgement, healing, then again, if we are forcing ourselves to feel good in the moment and doing a 5-minute breath work to help us like calm our nervous system, but this energy is still living there, sooner or later we need to address that energy as well. So it all needs to happen in this beautiful balance. And there's a big reason why I pay attention to the mindset, to the energy, and to the emotions all together, is because that's the pace of your body. If your body can process the energy, release emotions, be safely in its emotions, the mindset from there takes flight so much easier. Pretty much it releases a lot of resistance, make things more natural to you. And that means, like, if you're working with me one-on-one and we address all the things like parallel, sometimes in one session, sometimes in consecutive sessions, but it all needs to flow together, it's just will be most peaceful, most natural journey for you. And as comfortable as it is possible to make it for you, as healing can be sometimes a rough ride. And my goal is that it happens naturally without us humans with our mind deciding with our very fancy words and with our big words like trauma, and with our thinking pretty much what needs to happen. If we follow the energy and emotions, things can happen more naturally, and they are giving long lasting results. Because imagine how many amazing books, for example, have been written there out there for mindset. If it would be only about the mindset and not so much about the body and the energy and the emotions behind it, then we all would be pretty sweet, because mindset is the easy thing. You learn a thing, you read a quote, you hear someone speaking about it, you're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. But putting it into practice, you need to change the energy of your body and need to understand how your emotions work. So that's my approach. Amazing question, by the way. Second question I'm going to answer today is social media damaging for teenagers? I think most of you in your head, as you're listening to this, are screaming, yes, it is. I would say it depends on the context. It depends on the teenager. It depends on the family. It depends on how social media is obviously used by that teenager. What is the role models? What is the state of that teenager? And what is also the language, the energy around social media that we are creating also? Because I understand for parents, it can be so hard to kind of block out phones completely, because you kind of want to keep in touch with your teenager. Other teenagers in school most likely have the phones or tablets or access to any internet connection. They are there on the Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, doing all the things. So it can be very hard to kind of prevent your teenager doing these things, because obviously you don't want to isolate your child completely also from what their friends are doing. So it can be a very hard position for a parent to be, because it seems like such an obvious answer that yes, social media is definitely negative impact. I would soften that viewpoint a little bit though. Like, I remember one parent asked me that question already like a couple of years ago, and she asked her question and then she said straight away her opinion, how bad it is, the influence of like the pictures, the comparison, the photoshops, it's just negative influence on like to your body image and your self-esteem and all of that. And she said all of that while her many kids were right there at the table with us. And it's a fair question, right? But one thing I would, I guess, suggest, or instead of just speaking here the obvious answer, like how bad it is and all of that, we all know the dangers, I hope, and we all know the effects that it has on our dopamine levels and all of this. It's a real addiction social media can create. But if it's something, social media or anything else like that is a natural part of life, and eventually the teenagers, the young adults will be in this world anyway, then one thing I guess we can do is presenting these things to kids, to teenagers, to young people, with them knowing and having awareness of the risks and us keeping an eye on it, but also removing from this as much as possible this language around it that it will be bad for you. This is going to damage you. This is going to wreck your self-esteem. This is going to be negative influence. This is going to destroy your body image. This is going to create shame and problems with comparison. If we are always stating that, unfortunately, we are also programming our young children's mind to see that. And even that's the weirdest part about how our minds work. Even if we are saying it in a way like, be careful because this can be really bad for you, the intention behind it is really good, But how we speak it is we speak it about it in the negative words that constantly affirm the negative influence of that thing. For example, I give you a very like a personal example here from my own life, with my own experience with my mom. She had the best intention for me eating healthy. And like, why I'm giving this example, because when I was little, we didn't have social media, but there's always like these little devils everywhere that parents are navigating. And I can see that with working with women, the mom guilt is real, right? So we want to do the right thing. But here's just a little suggestion. So hopefully this example will highlight this. What happened was, I had a major sweet tooth, and I still do. I've always loved sweets, sugar, chocolate, cakes, biscuits, you name it. Like, I even became a pastry chef. I truly, with all my heart, love sweets. I love the look of them, how glamorous they taste, look, feel, the consistency of it. And already as a child, I was very much interested in anything sweet. And I remember I went into this sugar cup all the time that was filled with beautiful, gorgeous white sugar cubes. And I just went in, and I remember putting it on my tongue, and I remember how beautiful, how it felt like when it was like this. It kind of like softened in my mouth and just melted into this beautiful, sweet delight. This for me was just amazing moment, and I loved it so much, how the sugar cube melt. And I remember my mom was quite worried. I think she must have been worried that I just eat this pure sugar, so much of it. And instead of like talking me about like what is healthy and what is like good and what is the healthy amount, and kind of reaffirming it all in a loving way, she said to me like, you don't need to grow this upholstery around you. And that's what she said. And I know she had the best intention, and definitely love my mom deeply, deeply, deeply. But eventually it created for me this like weird energy when it comes to sweets, and me not understanding what am I doing wrong. And it made me just feel ashamed about myself, about my body, about the size of my body and my eating habits. And also like the just not understanding truly like, what am I doing wrong here? And so if you're unaware, like, what are you doing wrong because everyone else is doing this, or like it seems to be a natural thing to do, and if you're not explained this in a loving, positive, kind way, you are just in case fearful, shameful, guilty feeling about everything. And it creates a very disconnected relationship with yourself. So I guess the best advice here I have, for like, be it social media or anything else that you feel like it potentially harm, like, I don't know, the judgment of your child, anything, like, obviously I'm not a parent yet myself, so this is coming from my own experience as a coach, as a mentor and a healer. So affirm these things with the most kindest way possible. And for me, the very important thing is like, avoid shaming and judging your teenager, your child, your partner, anyone who you are talking to. Rather teach them to use their judgment towards making good decisions. And also, as much as possible, I do have to admit, if I would have kids, I would try to delay the exposure to social media as long as possible, just because what it does to our brain and how it activates our brain and how it starts to play with the dopamine levels. So obviously the exposure is important part there, and like limiting the amount that we spend on social media. And as much as possible, we can also use the parental controls and everything, even with ourselves, being careful as grown-ups, like what do we expose ourselves to? Like, I have a lot of women coming into sessions, and turns out they spent the last week when they had off from work watching true crime series, how someone killed young women and ate them or something like that. It's like, do you expect your nervous system to feel peaceful in that? No. no exposure to these things. We don't need to tap into these things. We can be aware what's happening in the world, and we can teach our teenagers about these things while still staying loving, kind towards them and towards ourselves. That's the most important part in my world. And that's where I would like to actually finish with that question as well. So I hope it gave you some good insight, and maybe it's just a gentle reminder that always kindness is the most important thing. So in the hopes of disconnecting the person from the thing that we are scared will harm them, that we are not creating disconnect from the person themselves by creating shame and guilt in the process. Very, very, very important. Next question. I'm going to actually keep these questions like jumping from one topic to another because it feels more fun like that. Third question that I'm going to answer today is, how did I become a coach? So this could be another whole series of podcast episodes on its own, but I'm going to answer this quite shortly today while still telling a little bit of a story. And I think the answer here is quite a boring one, saying that I feel like I have always been this person who's meant to become a healer of some sort, someone who helps other people, and someone who is definitely in the space of somehow helping people to overcome things, to think differently, to see different insights, to understand energy, because I remember that this world, that everything is vibration, everything is energy. I have lived in that world since I was a child. There has been so many things that I can see that blows grown-ups' minds now, understanding and learning certain principles and having certain insights into things, and starting to opening up the mind, the mindset, and the possibility of our abilities and the difference of thinking. If we start opening up, they're starting opening up it now, while so much of this, so many of these things I was already pondering, thinking about at the very, very young age. So for example, I was very, very young, almost like very little person when I set out to these words to myself that life consists of details. And so much wisdom has unraveled from that, and somehow I was always this deep thinker, and sometimes like people gave me a hard time for it because teenagers can be cruel, and not everyone was thinking that way, or not everyone was like kind of dissecting the inner world, the emotions, the awareness of emotions as much as I was paying attention to it. And obviously a big part of this becoming a coach was my own journey with anxiety. So pretty much now that ties a little bit in also with what is my approach to me being a coach or me being a healer is I truly wanted to create something that I wish existed when I needed help. So that's why I want this holistic approach. That's why I want this like almost like this big sister energy in the healing room that is so welcoming and homely for people, that we're taking people out of this, maybe this clinical space and diagnosing them and putting labels on, but actually speaking to how the person is doing. This is so important to me, and I craved that when I needed help, because people wanted to talk about anxiety. Everything was about anxiety, but not like, how are you doing? Let's leave the anxiety aside for now, and let's use some other words to start to understand how is your inner world operating. And my own journey brought to me being this coach. Like I already had a mentor for psychic abilities and like this greater awareness of things when I was really young, just over 20, I think. I started to see this famous psychic in Estonia, and she was the one to tell me, you are going to be like someone who continues with my work. You are someone who is going to be, even bigger, even more powerful than me. And although it was very hard for me to receive these words because I didn't really understand, and obviously it was a big boost for my ego, but I wasn't really like integrated in what I was doing, obviously being so young. But I already received guidance how to be a psychic back then. And I guess my contact with the psychic world was created very early. I remember communicating with ghosts, receiving messages from spirits, from things that I could actually see with my very own eyes and also sense, and being very connected to the nature, and all the rest of it has always been there. So when I came to Australia, I call it like my own full circle moment. All of a sudden, after already been many years here in Australia and going through a very like a dark time, depression, I went to my first self-development event. I remember I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw this one person. It was a young guy going by when I was scrolling, and I scrolled back and I was thinking, who's this person? And this person was advertising a self-development event, and I went to this event because I was thinking, for some reason I feel like I'm meant to meet this person. And everything unraveled from there. I already had been seeing a therapist for my depression and anxiety, but I had done that for a decade, right? So it was significant for my healing journey, and every therapy session has been somehow important piece of the puzzle. But seeing that self-development event unfold at the time, and me actually deciding to go for it and deciding to choose myself, deciding to choose a better future, that meant everything. Everything changed in that one moment. And I was all of a sudden immersed into this self-development world, which was amazing to me. And all of a sudden there was this domino effect, and very quickly I had been certified as a neuro-linguistic programming master coach, and I studied hypnotherapy. I studied how to be a coach. I was immersing myself into this world now with the intention also with helping others. Until then, I was reading self-development and I was reading everything, psychology, philosophy, all these things, but it was more just for me and for my general interest in it. And also in university, I studied, although I studied diplomacy and international law and governance and all of these things, all my selective subjects, all my selective points were just taken up by either something creative, philosophy, or straight up psychology. But the thing is, I couldn't get into psychology major in university because I hated math in school. So there was no chance I'm going to pass math national exam or pass it at least to a level where I would be accepted to psychology major. So I kind of snuck into psychology a bit differently and still studied it in my own ways. And also, now looking back when I'm 35 years old now, I also start to see maybe there was a bit of a meant to be moment as well, that I wasn't studying classical psychology and becoming psychologist in a system, because that journey now that has brought me to becoming a healer, becoming a mindset coach. It has taken me well over a decade to get here with very intentional work, and still yet very early in my age, right? 35 is very early to step into, I feel like total life purpose. And I'm very grateful that I have, but it hasn't been an easy journey. But now where the journey has taken me isn't just because I studied psychology, so I'm a psychologist. Simple enough. It's more now like I have become the person for it. I have become the personality. I have strengthened myself. I have learned some life lessons. It has been a journey of becoming that wild woman first, letting my creativity flow, having that inner confidence, having that inner strength, and then also becoming a healer with that. So for me, this has been so important. And I can see now how all the things that I couldn't just study something and be it, I had to become that person first. And I love that so much, because I can see how valuable it is for me, how valuable it is for the quality of my work, to the integrity of my work, the sustainability of me being a coach, and also the amazing results for my clients. So yes, it's been a journey of becoming, and studying all the things has just given me like a way how to express these natural gifts that already been within me. And one of those natural gifts definitely is the psychic vision, like this X-ray vision, sensing energy, feeling, seeing energy move in the person's body as I work with them in real time. This for me is so, so important, and I can't really imagine doing this work without having these abilities to see and sense and hear what's happening with the person, even if they're not saying, and or even they might not know what's happening. So because not a lot of people feel like how energy moves. Some people do, and that this is very beautiful confirmation for the client and for me. If they're saying what they're seeing, what they're feeling in their own inner world, and that's exactly what I'm seeing, sensing as well. So it's been this beautiful learning, this synergy, very real-time experiences of how it all comes together. But the natural gifts can be there, but if you don't kind of give yourself a platform to express them, and for me the platform definitely has been actually getting some certifications behind me, some training behind me, some life experience behind me, and watching very like amazing people do this work on a very big scale, and teaching me beside that work has been absolutely integral part of that. And it's still a journey that constantly continues. One thing is becoming a coach, but other thing is keep becoming that woman that is behind that coach label, right? So I'm constantly being coached on the background. I'm constantly still learning, still elevating myself. I'm investing a lot of money into my training, into myself, into my own health, wellness, and the knowledge I hold behind everything. So it is a constant journey of becoming. And other thing also what I want to say is like there's been always present this seeking for betterment, knowing that there is something different than take a tablet because you feel anxious. There's been always this calling for something better, calling for something real, true, wild, natural, some sort of truth and interconnectedness of things. This is this rich nature of me that has not allowed me to settle by what I've been told, is this relentless ability to just keep searching, keep asking the next person and the next and the next, until I'm starting to understand how things work. So don't ever underestimate these like meant to be moments in your life. Maybe if you meet someone or you hear something, you feel like it moves something within you. Explore that. Let these moments hit you. Let them change you, because they're constantly guiding you. Life is wise like that. Your own inner soul is wise like that. I love answering that question. And every time I answer that question, I tell a new part of the story or different part of the story. But I trust that's what was meant to be today. So I'm aiming to answer at the moment 2 more questions. And one of them is how did I end up in Australia? That's a question that I've been asked a few times as well. And every time I've been posting on Instagram, people asking me questions, someone is always asking like, why Australia? How did you end up here? How has this whole journey been? That's obviously another thing that is a massive life story for me, but I'm answering in a way that how it comes out naturally today. Very simply put, I very randomly all of a sudden started feeling, when I was doing my life in Estonia, I was 20-something woman, had a great job, life partner, all of this was happening to me. But I was very anxious, I was constantly battling with anxiety. But all of a sudden I had this knowing that I'm meant to go to Australia. It wasn't like a logical thinking or like a true emotional desire. It was an inner knowing that I'm going there. And I feel like I didn't really even ask myself, do I want to go? Because I'm pretty sure the answer would have been no, because everything would have seemed so complicated, expensive, hard, challenging. And I wasn't a person who loved traveling. I was one of the most stable person, most homely person ever. And I always avoided going anywhere, really. I'd never been on a plane before, but I had this very strong urge, this urgency, this inner knowing that I was peaceful at the same time, that I'm going to Australia. And I started speaking about it. I started telling to people the story that, yep, I want to go to Australia. And some people, like, they were just like, what? Like, no. They thought it was just a thing, you're saying, like some people saying whatever they want to start doing, but next weekend they talk about something different, and it's just like this thing that these ideas come and go. But I never put it down. But I was patient with it because I needed to put some money aside. I had a partner at the time, so things needed actually like working out logistically. So I gave it time, but I knew I was going to make it here. So pretty much what brought me to Australia was this inner calling, just this knowing that I'm going to end up here. I didn't know anything about Australia. Didn't do any research either. I picked the city to land in by what was the cheapest ticket. A complete bingo, to be honest, but just trusting that inner guidance so deeply that nothing else was available to me at the time. I just was complete tunnel vision, and I was fearless in the trip, in this pursuit of it. Because at the moment when I think about it, like right now, I don't know if I would have the courage to do that. It would take a lot from me. Like if I would have something so strongly calling me now, I would do it with the same energy, with the same like unwavering presence. But it was a massive thing for me at the time. So that's why sometimes when I coaching very young people, I'm saying, do things now while you're still like, where at the moment, if you feel a strong call, just go for it. We can work out the logistics. You can deal with the emotions, and everyone else can deal with their emotions, but go for the things that truly call you, because right now is the open window for doing these things. And the window was very much open because I decided it was open. And that's what I did. So I landed with my partner at the time in Cairns, and happened to be one of my friends from Estonia happened to be around Cairns. So we were very, very lucky. We got a job pretty quickly. We had a very soft landing, so to speak. And it just started like navigating this crazy world here. Didn't speak the language very well. Northern Queensland, the accent is very rough how people speak. I couldn't understand it. And now when people are saying like, so what's the Australian English like? I'm saying your normal English that you learn in TV is a good start, but you need to learn that local dialect and local ways of people speaking, because they can say something very simple to you and you still don't understand. And people weren't very gentle with that either. When you didn't understand what they're saying, they're like, you've been in Australia for already 2 weeks and I still can't speak the language. People would be like really like pissy about it. Or like when you ask them like, what are you saying? Like, can you please repeat? Then they're not slowing down and trying to explain it to you either in different words or calmer or slowly or pronounce things better. They're just saying it louder. Still in the rough accent, and it was hard in the beginning, to say the least. Because Australian culture is very unique, it's very different, like it's a whole another world down here. So but as a backpacker, I loved it. Very quickly, I met my now husband, Mickey. I broke up with my ex-partner at the time, which wasn't a pleasant experience for him at all. But I had this inner knowing this is meant to happen. He's meant to experience that. I'm meant to experience that. And it was just knowing that everyone will benefit from it. So a lot of people at the time called me that I was very cold how I operated it, but I operated with this complete trust. It was just this crazy trust. And obviously now the time, more than 10 years later, it has shown to me as well that everything has worked out obviously for the better, all parts involved. And yeah, as far as I know, as far as my awareness goes, and as far as my belief system goes, to be honest. But the thing, I think with the immigration journey in itself, one thing is actually deciding to come Australia and landing here and being here. But the other thing is like actually going through the visa process and like finding a guy and falling madly in love and finding this person that you know you're meant to live with for the rest of your life, or at least, you know, this is someone very significant in your life. And I had this thing with my husband, like I got this random job in a winery. I was very broke, so I needed a job. I was very happy I got the job. And I rocked up into this winery, you know, glad as a bug that I have a job. And it was very busy warehouse where a lot of forklifts was driving. It was hot. There was like a lot of shipping containers laid out on the concrete that people were driving and loading with forklifts to send this wine across the globe everywhere in shipping containers. And someone was telling me that wait here, wait next to the shipping container, and someone will come to you and teach you what you should be doing today, what's your job. And I was waiting and waiting, cooked in the sun there, it was hot, and already a bit like, how long I'm going to wait here? Like, am I in the right place? Like, what's going on? No one's like really speaking to me. People are just staring me when they're driving past in their forklifts. And this just all felt very weird. And all of a sudden, this guy walks towards me. And I was like, oh my God, why did you have to happen? And I knew, without ever speaking to this person, that this is the person for me. Mind you, I was in a relationship at the time myself, in a very committed, loyal, loving relationship. So everything unraveled from there. But a couple of things, what I want to say about the immigration journey is that I faced quite a bit of like this type of attitude of like, oh, what's the problem for you getting a visa in Australia? You're a hot blonde woman, young girl. Of course, you're going to find some poor schmuck who's going to just, you know, do the visa process with you, and then you can dump them on their ass and like be done with it. And I was like, excuse me, like for me, let's be honest, falling in love in this, like in a foreign country across the globe, has proved itself to be a major inconvenience. Let's start with that. So I have this mantra that every now and then I repeat to myself, saying like, Hannah, let's try not to make a major inconvenience or a problem out of the fact that you met the love of your life. Let's just be happy about that fact that you met the love of your life. You have a jackpot of a husband. It's a good thing. But let's be honest, living across the country and staying here, deciding to stay here, extremely confronting, heart-aching, heartbreaking to leave your family, your culture, your home behind, and deciding to stay here for the sake of like in the knowing that this is meant to be for me, and also loving someone that much. This love changed me, who I was as a person, how I operated. It made me feel very vulnerable. That opened up a massive can of words that ultimately was a big part of like why I got so depressed, because loving someone with such an open heart and so deeply cracks you the F open. So my husband also has been a huge part of my healing journey and me becoming the woman that I am now. But as someone who were just in the very beginning of that relationship, I was faced with a lot of these weird backhanded comments of like, you'll find some local guy who's doing the visa for you. I freaking didn't want the Australian visa. I needed one because I decided to stay here with my husband, and at the time that's what I needed, because we needed to kind of see is our relationships going to work out and what's going to happen with us, because that wasn't an easy journey either. What happened with like the family relationships and all of that was fucking wild. Sorry for the F's. It was nothing short of the wild woman journey. And it was pretty crazy, but this is something that I don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing openly in the podcast here, because it involves like very tender family relationships. This is something I share with in-person spaces and all of that, but not probably in the podcast at the moment. Maybe in the future, and maybe not in this episode either, because it's been quite a long journey already. But it wasn't, if people would think like, oh, it was so easy for you, you're this blonde chick who just like can get a visa with anyone. That was not the case, and I did not appreciate this type of attitude. And even Estonians were sometimes messaging me like, "How did you manage staying there for so many years?" It's like, well, I live here. I have a partner here. I'm creating a home here. I have dogs here. I'm living here, and it hasn't come easy to me. And this comment is always like, "Oh, you just don't want to share your secrets," or like, "What did you do?" It's easy for you because you're a woman. It's like, please don't. It's very far from the truth. It wasn't easy on emotional, mental level to do that, and it's not easy falling in love with someone who is that far from your home. But what the other thing I want to say about immigration journey, going through that visa process and all of that, if you're listening to this and you're someone who is in the process of like either wanting Australian visa or thinking about it or any of that, the visa process itself is not as crazy as everything makes it out to be. I did it all by myself, decided to do that because what I realized, nobody knows this information about me more than me, and I don't want to spend my time convincing some lawyer who didn't really believe that we're there for the good intentions, good reasons. It was all doable for myself, and it's not as crazy as people make it out to be, and definitely not as complicated if you speak English and your relationship is genuine. So yes, I guess that's what I want to say about this at the moment. Our relationship was very genuine, and we had so much evidence of us living together. Visa, that was not a complicated process for us at all. What made it complicated is the clash of the cultures, that started to happen, and the difference of beliefs. I'm an extremely strong person. My beliefs are my beliefs, and although I've softened since then a lot, and this was a very massive teaching for me, and in showing my strength as well, and just growing through that so much. But it took everything of me to fight for my freedom, fight for my husband's freedom, fight for my right to be in that relationship the way I am now. So, and interestingly enough, like now I've been living in Australia, including my backpacking years. I think it's getting closer to 11 years now. It was a 10th year anniversary not long ago. So it's coming 11 years soon, and to be honest, the missing of my home, my culture, my home climate, my people, my family is getting worse by the minute. I feel like that's what's happening. I truly miss home. I miss Europe. I mean, I love this culture. I miss so much about it. So who knows, maybe one day my journey will take me back home. I was considering it very seriously for the past 2 years. At the moment, I've managed to calm that urge down and done a lot of healing around it, a lot of crying about it, literally. So yes, it's been a hella journey, and we'll see how it unfolds in the future. And staying intact and in integrity with my beliefs and things that I know will work for me, I will always keep making decisions based on that same inner knowing, based on that same inner calling, this soul speaking through me. And what has challenged me now, obviously being married to someone that you feel you love so deeply and you're so attached to, and it's becoming such an important person in your life that is now your family. Taking the other person's opinion into account as well has been definitely a challenge for me. And it has been challenging this inner calling for me a lot. But there are a lot of learnings has been there as well. So definitely, sorry, bit of a frog in my throat today. So definitely been a big learning, teaching, growth, elevation, expansion, and coming together with my husband at the same time. So beautiful and challenging journey it has been. In fact, how challenging this journey has been between us as a couple is now like leaving me into this interesting position as a coach, for example. When people come to me with really challenging relationship problems, I always have faith for the relationship coming together if people are willing and if people want this to happen. It's a different story if people kind of like already know in the depths of their soul that this is not for them and they want to move on and they've kind of made this decision already that it's not right for them. That's a different story. But just challenging things in relationships, considering what I have been through in my own marriage, especially in the beginning of it, anything is possible. So yes, anything is possible for me in my world, and anything is possible to work through if people want to. So the last question I'm gonna answer today is again was given me this question through the Instagram stories, and the question is, what is the advice I would have to my younger self? So I feel it's a beautiful way to finish and wrap up today's episode. Very often storytelling podcasts and that I've noticed podcast hosts ask their questions at the end as well. What is the advice you would give, or what is that you wish you knew sooner, or something like that? And that's why I decided to leave it at the end. And I was actually thinking about it. There's so much we learn in our journey that we can look back a bit regretfully and thinking like, I wish I knew that sooner. But there is a chance that we had this knowledge, or this we had read a book, or we had already contact with this wisdom before, but it didn't land. We couldn't practice it. We couldn't understand and appreciate, see the value of it all. Because we weren't ready to receive it. We weren't ready truly to appreciate the seriousness of these things and the depth of them. And everything has landed in its own time. So I was actually thinking, I don't know if there is something that I would truly if I would go back, I would change. But one thing did pop up into my mind, and this is something that if I'm ever will be a parent, is something I don't know, but only future can tell. If I ever be a parent, but now as a mentor, as someone who has, I call it influence. I have this influence that I need to be aware of, that as a coach, as someone who speaks a lot in this podcasting space and social media through my posts. And I want to be careful with that influence and very loving and kind with that influence that I have on people who tap into that energy. And obviously I want to expand the audience, and I want to reach more people who all of these approaches and how I work can help. So one of the bases of that influence this wisdom that I want to impart to people as well is self-importance. Self-importance. Because as we've been brought up as young girls, we have to consider our parents, we have to consider our siblings. Then we go to school. The very important person there is the teacher, then the grandparents, the parents. There's always someone who is very important, someone who has authority, someone who knows better. Then we have these besties, then we have the cool kids in the school. They know what's best. But something like the concept of self, the concept of you understanding yourself in the context of you as someone who is important person as well, who has value in that importance, not because you're better than someone else or because you are too self-important or kind of cocky and have this excessive amount of pride that keeps you from seeing things for what they are. No, I'm not talking about that. But this beautiful self-importance, knowing that you matter, your presence matters, your words matter. The fact that you want to start a podcast, it matters. The fact that what you have to say, it matters. Your opinion matters. Your body matters. You are important. and you should know that self-importance in your own world. And I was like growing up with my mom, like I said earlier in the podcast, she was always doing her best, and she tried to truly show us girls that we need to care for ourselves. And she repeated this as a mantra, that nobody knows to love you if you're not loving yourself. Nobody knows to make yourself important if you're not important to yourself. She has her own way of wording it, but that's how what I've taken it from. And the role model aspect of it was like slightly different sometimes, I would say, but I truly appreciate her saying this, repeating it, and kind of bringing this into our awareness that somehow we are, what I say we is because I have a sister as well, so me and my sister, but I appreciate that somehow it was instilled to me very early that I am the source of how things play out. And it's actually very, very profound understanding of like that people know to love you if you love yourself. That was something like my mom repeated. I don't know even if she realized how big of a thing this is me now in a later age, 35, like I can definitely appreciate it. But this self-importance next to other people is extremely important, and particularly if you are stepping into this wild woman realm and you're going through your healing journey, growth journey, mindset journey, and as you're becoming a woman at any time when you transition from womanhood to the next level of your womanhood, to your better relationship with yourself, we gotta be able to lift ourselves out of this good girl status, this daughter status, this little sister status, the big sister status, whatever this status is that you've taken yourself and is limiting you. You have to lift yourself out of that into your womanhood, and it takes a lot of self-importance to do that. And I think that is one of those pieces that I will definitely want to just speak about, want to remind people that you are important, you value, you are the big, big, big deal. Your presence has influence, your absence has influence, your energy is important, you are important. And another piece, what I want to say, what I touched on earlier as well, when I was very young, I spoke these words that life consists of details, and every detail affects the whole. And that's another thing, I guess I would have even I would still want to tap into more, if I would be able to do it all over again. And also understanding that means also that change starts in details. If you want to create change, start with those details, start with what you can do now, instead of looking that all of the big pictures looks too big, too this, too that, so possibly I can't. You can start from somewhere. You can make something happen today. You can make a step, little one, today. You can finish this podcast and you can go out and have the most beautiful 5 minutes sitting in your own space. You can do that. We have the freedom to do so many things that we take for granted, and these details are a very, very important part of how the whole life comes together. They create the energy that starts to bleed into everything else as well. And another thing, maybe a little third piece I would say here, which is what you would expect me to say, and what is a massive part of me teaching to women at any age, particularly young women who just seems to have this sense of things, but they doubt it, they question it, they try to talk themselves out of it, as everything else seems to be, again, more important than their inner knowing. Your inner knowing is real. Trust that within yourself. This is actually very profound guidance, and protect that inner knowing. Come back to that inner knowing, and that sense in this center of your being, in your chest. There's just this, I don't know why, but I know this. And learning to create a relationship with it is priceless. Learning to read it without tainting it with fear and emotions, that's priceless. Learning to actually follow it and listen to it, appreciate it, is actually such a priceless life wisdom. And I definitely would recommend, if I would be able to mentor my younger self, I would show her how valuable this is, and all your quirks and all these things that make you are something that one day they are going to be amazingly valuable. Like myself, for example, this is now what is developed into like a brand of mine, pretty much this whole wild woman thing. Nobody taught me how to become a wild woman. I became one because I followed my own quirks. I followed my own things that I felt like I wanted to do something. I'd done it. I wanted to do this. I'd done it. I wanted to do that. I went for it. Bringing this nature out, following these little inner nudges fearlessly and unapologetically, as much as it was possible for me, available for me at the time. So you connect to your natural nature, not by what others are doing. Forget about that. Just going to what feels right, feels like truth, feels real, and makes you like freaking feel alive inside. These are the things to focus on, and these will take you to yourself much, much, much quicker. And I feel like this is where I could wrap up today's episode. It just ticked over on my timer here, exactly 1 hour. So it's been so beautiful and pleasant to chat with you here. I hope you picked up some wisdom from here. You can comment on the episodes, at least here, I know definitely in Spotify. If you're listening to an Apple podcast or any other platform, get in touch through my social media. You find me everywhere with just Hannah Furore, dot in the middle for the handles on Instagram and Facebook. And ask your questions or leave me a message or comment what resonated with you today. I love talking about all these things. I love womanhood. I love women. I love bringing people together. I love all about this realm where I am so lucky now to work in, immerse myself in, and yeah, feel very blessed. Feel very blessed to have all of you tune into this audio space here as well. So massive gratitude. And yes, I see you on the other side of Cyclone Alfred. Stay safe, everyone. Big love. Stay safe, stay calm, stay peaceful.